Okay, guys, I think let's just start our meeting. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance. Rich, you want to start?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess we left the gavel or the other bill.
Oh, yeah, we got the nameplates.
Yeah, I get it together.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Next week,
Next your fist.
Becky, would you like to start with the roll call?
For Councilwoman Frye,
Present.
Councilman Stein, Councilman Botadilla,
Present.
Councilman Youngkins,
President.
Vice President Ondo,
Here.
President Brennan,
Here.
Mayor Falls,
Here.
Borough Engineer Colin Lamper, Police Chief Snyder,
Here.
Fire Chief Pletch, Public Works Supervisor Bicey,
Here.
Building Code Official, Code Enforcement Officer Cannon.
Here.
Oh, I'm sorry, and Zoning Officer. Sorry, I apologize, I missed part of your title. And Borough Office Administrator Worth. I'm here.
Good. Thank you all for attending. Just want to start, we've been very busy here. We've had a couple executive session meetings. We've had a special meeting for Munhall Borough regarding the budget, and I want the public to be aware that we had these meetings. All right. That's not it. So we did advertise in the Valley Mirror for the borough manager's position, and the 21st was the cutoff date for accepting that. So we did advertise that. We did have a executive session meeting on that, and that was like what day was that, Becky?
Monday the 7th.
It was Monday, and we did advertise that as well, correct?
Yes.
So that was done. We also had a meeting to open up the budget. That was advertised and spoken about at our last council meeting. The budget was reopened on January 31st, 6 p.m. And that was in the other council chambers room. We're lucky we have two council chambers. And that was advertised.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Today we had a meeting. It was a training session meeting. It was a webinar is what it was. It was very informative. All of council was invited to this meeting. Right here we have an email to all council, and everyone was invited to attend. We attended in the borough manager's office, and we did take in the webinar, and it was very informative. It was on understanding the Sunshine Act and amendments, and we went through that. It was very informative. And just to mention, the meeting the four of us councilmen attended was not a violation of the Sunshine Law Act.
I wasn't invited to that meeting.
Yes, you were, sir. Here's your email. You were invited.
I didn't get the email.
Well, sorry you weren't there. I asked you to attend when you came in, but you didn't want to.
Well,
You accused us of having a secret meeting.
You were having a meeting against the Sunshine Law,
Okay. Well,
as far as I'm concerned.
I know that. And that's what you told us that, and you interrupted the meeting.
I'm sorry I
And-
interrupted it,
No, you weren't. You were nasty, and you interrupted the
but
meeting.
I wasn't nasty.
You were. And furthermore, you were invited to the meeting.
No, you should.
And it's right there. There's the invitation. I gave it to you. So I'm not going to argue with you.
I ain't either. I'm just telling you.
You were invited.
I did not.
And you
receive-
were invited to the other meeting as well that was advertised
I wasn't.
at the borough building to open up the budget, and you didn't attend.
No, I wasn't.
You were.
No,
So maybe
I
you
wasn't.
need to pay attention what's going on.
I do pay attention, very
I
well.
don't think so. I beg to differ with you. So let's
I
move
pay
on.
more attention to some people here.
So, these meetings were all held and advertised properly. So let's move on to the guest speaker. We have Commonwealth Consulting Partners. Would you please step up to the podium? And we usually have a speaker there, but we don't have a speaker.
Jamie, I apologize, I forgot to put your name next to it.
That's okay, that's okay. I'm Jamie Glasser, pleased to be with you again tonight. And to talk to you all about some of the work we've been doing with the borough to seek grant funding for projects as identified with priorities for the borough. As we've discussed before, there's a number of grants that are outstanding at this point.
I noticed that.
You're interrupting her.
Sorry.
That's okay. There are a number of grants that have been awarded to the borough that we're in the process of drawing down in various stages. Among those include a recycling program grant that was in the amount of $232,000. We have drawn down so far $207,000, a little more than $207,000 that has been received, to my understanding. The second drawdown request we submitted about 6 weeks ago, and I got word today that it was approved. That is nearly $21,000, $20,913.75 that is being recommended for payment by our representative at DEP. So that will be forthcoming. There remains about $4,000 in DEP funds that has to be matched with borough, but only at 10%. So there's a small borough contribution to continue to draw those down if we want to complete that. So that's around $6,000 that can be used for the recycling program in the borough if you should have anything that you need with regard to that. So that is there. We are in the process of following up with the Bulletproof Vest program at the federal level. That's through the Federal Department of Justice. There is an allocation to the borough for Bulletproof Vests through that program that we need to determine what funds are available right now. I believe there are funds that can be drawn down, but that program is limited by the useful life of the vests. So there are a 3-year useful life period. So we can only draw down on those every 3 years for each officer, if that makes sense. We did not actually apply for that this past year because of the cycle of the vests. There was only about $30 available to the borough. That didn't seem to be worth the paperwork, frankly, to do $30 in reimbursement there. But we believe that there are funds available. We need to sort out a couple of login things with the website to sort out exactly what's happening there. The big grants that are outstanding right now, the Gaming Economic Development and Tourism Fund that was awarded to do site improvements at the construction site is completed. The drawdown on that is underway, and we have submitted all the paperwork to draw all those funds down to the tune of $125,000. I believe a portion of that has been received as well. The second drawdown request is in process now.
So we have received some of that?
I believe we have, yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay.
That's my understanding. I don't have the figures, Mr. Councilman, but I will be able to get those for you if you.
I think the first one was like 89,000.
I think that's right. It was a big chunk in the first one and a smaller portion in the second. But all the paperwork, as I said, for that has been submitted to get the second drawdown as well.
And the second draw will be the remainder of the one.
That's correct, and that grant will be closed out.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Was that the one that we asked to be waived, the 100?
No, that's multimodal.
That's a different.
That's next.
Okay.
That's next. Yeah, so the next allocation is $300,000 for the multimodal transportation fund through the Department of Community and Economic Development, and that is for Raymond Bodger Way, which was a new street for the borough building. It is, as I said, $300,000. Now, that application, when we put that application in, the total project cost for that was $586,000. The intention was that the borough would put in a portion of that as a match. There is a matching requirement that is typically in place for that. However, the department has agreed to waive that match for the borough. So right now, we can reduce the scope of the project to $300,000 the question really becomes then, what is the outcome of the project? We'll need to be in conversation with DCED about that to make sure that it still meets with their expectations. And, you know, the engineer can give a little bit more insight into what exactly would be available.
I just want to make one thing clear on that. Typically, when we put together costs for a project, we tend to skew very high, especially like when we're asking for money. So I'm confident that we can get a project done within the ballpark of what was awarded. However, they were very clear, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we talked to Tracy with the state, she was very clear in the application process that the grant would not cover paving of parking spaces. So the 20 spots along Westfield and the spots, the 12.5 spots under the awning, the borough would have to, if you wanted to have that paved, which I can't foresee any scenario where we did want that paved, the borough would have to pay those funds themselves. Even though there's no matching requirement, the state money cannot be used for that part of the project. And then contractually, we can handle that, and we would have to vet that out with the state. But, you know, it's estimated that's maybe $40,000 value of a $350,000 project. So I still, it's a very good grant.
So I think the key things from that are that, you know, for all of these grants, there are specific uses for the funds that we have to abide with the state. We will happily be in conversation with DCED about what that project looks like, given the amount of the award and the waiver of matching funds. So we can determine, based on your priorities and your direction, what it is that you want to pursue with that $300,000.
So the original outline, did that have paving in it?
Yes. Yeah.
That now we can't use paving?
No.
No.
I'm sorry, Councilman. It's a portion of the paving. So there is paving included there, but there are the multimodal grant is intended to create transportation connections. So they don't use those funds for parking.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not.
It's part of the overall grant program. Like, you couldn't apply. I mean, really, it was kind of like a caveat with our project. That's my opinion. But you know, we applied to pave all along, you know, Raven-Bodner Way, all the way back to really to the public works.
So you can use the money to pave the right of way through there, but
all
but
through
not
there.
the parking spot.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand.
That's
It's
exactly.
part of the program. You know, the overarching program says this money is not eligible for parking lots.
I got it.
So, and then they looked at our project and they said, well, that's kind of a parking lot. We can't pay for that.
So.
Only the roadway.
Only the road.
Exactly. So those are the carve-outs we'll have to make in the project. But again, you know, we feel pretty confident that these funds can be used productively. It's just a matter of how we pare the project down from what we initially proposed, given the amount of the application initially. So that's the multimodal. We also have out a small water and sewer grant that is intended for the Duquesne Avenue culvert. That is in the amount of $200,000. There is also the DCNR Community Conservation Partnership Program award. That program is a 1-to-1 match. The award from DCNR is $221,000, which means the total project size there is $442,000. That was intended to rehabilitate 3 parks.
Right.
DCNR is strongly recommending, and I think that the previous conversations that we've had reflect this, but DCNR is strongly recommending that we pare that down to 2 sites instead of 3. And they would, although that grant can be drawn down until the end of 2023, their recommendation is that we'll start doing that sooner rather than later, just to make sure that we're not coming up against the wire. On that. So we certainly really would welcome the opportunity to work on that project this year. It is in the design phase, and DCNR would love to see designs in the next couple of months if that's feasible. So we would welcome direction on whether to pursue some additional conversation with DCNR to present them with some designs at this point. That's really where we are right now.
Jamie, if you don't mind, I'd just add one thing onto that. So Jamie and Joe, myself, had a preliminary conversation with DCNR. The cost basis for the grant that was submitted, Joe had actually went out and got some vendor costs for playground equipment. She explained to us what else she wanted to see, and it was really their recommendation. They said, hey, instead of, we think you're spreading yourself pretty thin going after video, Vine Street, and Troutman. We really think pick 2 out of the 3 and do 2 great ones instead of 3, okay ones. So Joe did do some of the preliminary legwork just in terms of getting vendor quotes on playground equipment. What the next step that we would have to do would be to kind of come up with a general arrangement of the improvements for the park, and then what infrastructure, once you improve the playground equipment, you now have to make the parks ADA accessible. The playground equipment has to be ADA accessible. Sidewalks might need to get added, roads might need to get added. So that's the kind of stuff that needs to get figured out, and then on a high level, and then sit back down with DCNR and say, are these projects acceptable? And then if they were, we would complete the design and bid out the project. So that's kind of, when we say authorize or, this is where we're at, that really, we would like some input from this council, from the borough, what they think, the priorities are, what they'd like to see at the parks. Rob, we had a conversation, I forget the game, the Packway courts, and he shared some really nice information with me on that. I still have all that stuff, so.
That's something we're gonna have to hopefully get moving on soon. I mean,
Yes.
before we know it, spring's gonna be here.
Exactly.
And then I know last year, Troutman really had no playground equipment.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to,
I
I'd
mean,
like to see us get moving on that as fast as we can to get something up by April and May.
And I can tell you that DCNR feels the same, Mr. Mayor, that they would love to see this moving this summer as well.
Right, because it's running out too. I mean, we only got till
That's right.
what?
Next year.
2023,
It's the end of
right?
2023 for the
All
contract
the way
period.
through 2023?
Yes, it is, but I don't want to use that as a reason to put this off.
No, but we can hold some back and just get some done this year, then spend some in 2023.
We could do one park this summer, one park next summer.
So council, what is your feeling on the 2 parks we should go to? I know what I think we should go to. I'm asking any input on what you all think.
What, to pick what parks?
Well, there's her recommendation from DCNR
That's correct.
is saying we should tone it down to 2. My thought is we should work on Troutman and video myself. Those are the 2 biggest parks, and they would be used by more people, I think, than anyone. And Troutman, like you said, certainly needs playground equipment. We need that there. And video has not been used as a park in the last 25 years, 30 years as a real park.
Right.
So I would think those 2 would be it. The Vine Street Park is just a small park. It's just a very, very small park. There's not a lot there. Not that it's bad. I mean, it's fine there. I mean, I don't know if there's I don't know if there's water at that park or not. Is there water up there?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So
There's
there's not even a
not
drinking
running
fountain.
I don't know what that park was initially used for, but I mean, it's good, it's a good size, and 3/4 of it is just paved with asphalt, and there's like nothing there.
It would actually make a decent,
Oh, video.
we can, you wanna put a basketball?
No, Vine Street, the one up in Munhall
How
Borough.
about Vine Street?
Like they said in the beginning,
It used to be a baseball field.
Use it as a recreation field instead of a park.
Neighbors want to play down there.
Neighbors do want something up, right? Talked to a couple of them.
Well,
Excuse me, maybe I misspoke. Video is the small part.
video's a small
Yeah,
one.
I misspoke. It should be Vine Street
Vine
and
Street.
Troutman are the two parks that we should really be working on.
And Councilman, that was the conversation we had the last time we had a
Yeah.
discussion about this,
Right.
was that we'd proceed with Vine Street and Troutman.
Right.
So that seems to be,
So I think, were you all in agreement about that?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
cool with that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean like,
What-
people up in the garden need to have a park too.
One thing, if we could get up in Woodhill Park, the jungle gym that was up there had a tunnel. That the kids would go up one side, crawl through the tunnel, go on the other side. That, part of that tunnel has been missing for how long? Couple of years. So if a child goes up one side and falls we're in trouble.
okay.
So I don't know what it would take to just maybe replace that piece of,
You can't get it.
can't get it.
You tried, they don't make it.
So we would have to replace the whole unit?
We have to bring somebody in and see if they make something different, but I don't think we have to
Or
replace
they
it.
put a mat or something
I mean, at this point, if it's dangerous, it should be taken out.
Yeah, we boarded it up, they broke that off.
Yeah.
So let's keep that as in mind. That's something that we can do separately. This is all pertaining to the grant. And from what we've been told, the grant money can only be spent on these particular parks.
Yeah. And really, I don't want to steer, I think you guys are on the right track, but I don't think the sentiment was like, oh, you guys have to do 2, you can't do 3. Just think for the amount that was awarded, that if you try to do all 3, you'd be spreading yourself very thin.
Right, and I think that what you're saying is we couldn't do something in the video park if we had extra money that we wanted to do something.
Sure, yes.
It would be on a smaller
It
scale.
would be a much smaller scale.
Right.
And playground equipment costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's
It's gonna be the majority of the cost, and then just to get sidewalk, to make it ADA accessible is probably gonna be pretty much the rest of the cost. It pretty much can be at your budget. Very little budget for, landscaping and other stuff, but hopefully we can incorporate some things.
All right,
James, so after we get those 2 done,
Mhm.
are we able to apply for grant money to fix 2 other parks in Munhall?
Certainly,
Okay,
certainly.
well, maybe.
And in fact, we can talk about other priorities this evening as well, because there are, in addition to this particular program, there's other programs that may fund parks as well, if we want to pursue that. Sometimes it takes more than one bite at the apple with these applications, but, once we draw down the funds that are currently available from Conservation and Natural Resources, we can apply again next year, we can, continue to pursue funding through them. Part of what would be helpful is building a good working relationship with them now, so that when we put an application in next time, we know how the process goes and how all of that works too. But they've been very responsive so far, and our contact there has been really helpful. So the other, so I thank you for that direction on the on the CGP2 grant. That's very helpful.
I mean, just to wrap it up, what I would propose, and I mean, the council already authorized, Hatch to start preparing plans back in November of 2021. At the time, the direction was pretty ominous, and so I didn't want to commit a lot of funds and, stuff till we had a chance to make sure that the new council wanted us to head this direction and, et cetera, et cetera. So what I would suggest at this point is that have my office, we'll prepare some just very general plans for discussion that we could come back and present at the March workshop or at a special meeting, showing the plan improvements for the site and, get everyone's buy-in. And then after we have everyone's buy-in, we can prepare more detailed cost estimates and, go into the, hey, let's work on plans and get this bid out.
So will you make a physical trip to each park and take down measurements or take down, the topography of each little park and decide on where you want to put this?
Yeah, we can pull some just general elevations and stuff off of like the PASDA survey information, just off the state database. We'll prepare a little rendering. I can even put it on boards so we can come into the next meeting and.
The reason why I'm asking that is maybe council members would like to walk walk through up there and talk
Sure.
with you when you go there, that's all. That's all, I'm just
Yeah,
opening that up.
If you guys would like to schedule like a preliminary walkthrough before we start doing the plans, I'd love to get that scheduled with you guys.
I think that would be good.
You know, we can even see if Jamie and DCNR would like to be there.
Yep.
I think that's wise.
Okay.
DCNR may not come from Harrisburg, but we,
Oh, okay. I thought she was in Pittsburgh.
no, that's in Harrisburg.
Oh, she's from Munhall though.
Well, she has families from West Midland, I think.
Okay.
But yeah.
Small world.
That's just Pittsburgh, you know? That's
All right.
just the way it works.
Degrees.
All right, so if you want to do that, make an arrangement and
Okay.
certainly call Becky and get in touch with her.
I'll
We'll
let-
be
I'll let
glad to
You know,
meet
you're
with
available,
you.
and I'll let,
Yeah,
make sure I get everybody
Yep.
good.
I'll plan on coming out on Thursday or Friday.
That's
Next
perfect.
week or two.
All right, good.
Alan, are we allowed, I know a few people who would love to be involved. They're not on, they're not on council. Can we ask a few residents?
This
I
would,
mean, they're
it's,
knowledgeable and-
this is your meeting. I'm just
Okay.
here to help support you and to listen and to hear what you have to say and to take notes, and that's it. So if
Some people
whoever
have
you want to
voiced,
involve.
you know, they would like to get involved.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
asking. I would like to see people get involved, you know,
Like I said,
not
it's-
just run,
It's your meeting,
disappear.
and, you know, I'm just here to help, so you bring whoever you
Just
need.
give us a couple dates and we'll be glad to be there.
I will get that set out.
And anyone from the
Perfect.
public is
Okay.
invited to come.
I'll be here.
That's wonderful.
Cool.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. The other grant that is out there is the RCAP grant for the construction project at Borough Building. That is $1 million, as you know. The process to draw that down is lengthy. We are working on it and we're trying to move that process as quickly as we can. We're waiting on paperwork from Franjo as they close out certified payrolls. We have to submit a lot of paperwork to the Commonwealth for that one. But we are working with our state assigned consultant on that. His name is Scott Simonson. And I was in touch with him today about some insurance things and you know, submitting documents there. So happy to provide updates on that process as we go through it. But it is a long one. That grant takes a long time. So, and just so that you're aware, that the award for that grant comes early, and then you submit a whole lot of paperwork, and then the grant agreement comes. And then once that is submitted, and we are able to satisfy all the special conditions in that contract, then the payment can be accessed. So we're sort of inching toward the grant agreement, and then we'll know what we have to satisfy with the special conditions. The goal right now is to submit as much now as we can to reduce the number of special conditions that are in that final agreement. The one advantage that we have with Munhall as a unit of local government is that you all are the grantee in that application as opposed to a sub-grantee. For example, when the Carnegie Library of Homestead gets an RCAP grant, they have to have a government grantee, that is the county economic development agency. We can skip that step, so that saves us a little bit of time and frankly money, because we don't have to pay a fee to them on that either. So one advantage there is that you all are able to be the grantee for that grant. So an advantage there. And then I just wanted to let you know that we are tracking.
Is that one for the library? Is that what you're talking about?
No, that.
Would be the grantee, we have to sign off?
No, that you are not the grantee for the library. Allegheny County Economic Development is the grantee for the library.
Okay, Allegheny County, that's not.
Yes, there was a grant that we applied for in the fall, the Keystone Library grant. Requires that the municipality apply, so the borough was kind enough to do that on behalf of Carnegie Library of Homestead. And there's actually a program open right now that is statewide local share account money, that is gaming funds. This is the first time they've offered that on a statewide basis. Typically in Allegheny County, those funds are granted through the GEDTF program, which we just talked about. You all have been a recipient of funds through that program. But they've opened up a new program with applications due March 15th. The borough is eligible to apply for that for a number of capital uses, a very broad swath of capital uses. So we can talk about whether there's an interest in applying on the borough side as well. The interesting piece of that is that the beneficiary of the funds from that grant could be the government entity on property that they own, or it could be the government entity seeking funds to benefit a nonprofit organization within its borders, or really actually anywhere in the state. An interesting wrinkle. But I know that Carnegie Library of Homestead, who in the interest of full disclosure, my firm also represents, is interested in applying for that grant if the borough would be willing to work with them on that. So if there is interest in helping the library in that way, that does not preclude the borough from applying for funds as well, but that would be two applications that wouldn't be in competition with each other. Not to say they couldn't both be funded, they could. There's $140 or $150 million in this pot of funds, which is relatively large for a state program. So it is possible that you could submit one for the borough for whatever needs you might identify, and also on behalf of the library to benefit them, and they would both be funded. But we don't know how that will shake out. This being the first time through that program, we don't have a sense of how that's going to go. So.
And when would they have applications have to be started or filed with us, something like that?
So applications for that program particularly are due March 15th. That is a tight turnaround. So we're going to need to identify a project relatively quickly if we're going to pursue those funds.
And what kind of project could be umbrellaed under that?
Yeah, so when I say that program is broad, that is absolutely the case. It is, I'm going to pull the whole list for you in just 1 second.
Could I ask you one question?
Yeah.
Could we do Main Street? Sidewalks and whatnot, because Main Street is a problem and it needs to be addressed. People slip and fall, and it was done through grant, I believe, years ago, and I don't know if it would fall under this. So I'm just asking that simple question.
My suspicion is that we could do a project around that. I would encourage you to pursue a project that would include not just paving the road, but also any kind of beautification upgrades along that corridor. That being a main business corridor as well, that could have economic development impacts as well, that we could include in the application. We'd have to get, I would encourage you to include.
I wasn't even thinking the road, I was thinking the beautification of the sidewalks, and planters, and seats, and all that stuff through there, so.
Yes, I believe that would actually.
Do we have enough time to do something like that?
That I will defer to Colin on a little bit, because we would need to.
Well, I don't know what we'd have to put together. I mean, we certainly, this is something that Jamie and Joe and I routinely worked on for the last couple years. To put something together by March 15th would be feasible. Typically all that's been required is a project description, high-level cost estimate, et cetera, but we'd have to know basically what does the project consist of, from Miller to Superior, like how far is it gonna be?
Right.
And just as a, scale, the Safe Routes to School project that we did in 2017, I mean, that was almost $1 million project. And I mean, that didn't include benches, lighting, planning, that was just ADA curb ramps and sidewalk.
Well, I don't know how council feels, but I certainly know we have a need for that.
Yeah.
That needs to be addressed. And I know we can't fork out $3 million to do that project, or whatever X amount of dollars that is.
Is there a matching requirement?
Okay, so the upside of this program is there is no matching requirement. The project is, however, capped at $1 million. So you can't, the grant, I should say the grant award is capped at $1 million.
Okay.
So that's a consideration. It doesn't mean the project can be bigger than $1 million. It could be, but that will be, anything over and above the award would be borough funds.
Jamie could tell you much better than me, but typically I think when the state reviews this, that one, they like to see a little skin in the game from the municipal side. Hey, what are you guys bringing to the table? It doesn't have to be much, but if it's a $1 million project, it might not hurt to plan to come to the table with 5, 10%, 15%, something like that. Two, I think that Jamie hit the nail on the head, which he said before, like it can include paving and sidewalks, but really, I think what the state would like to see is like the overall economic development. This is going to improve walkability and access to public transportation and, access to these businesses. And I think you could incorporate things like stormwater, planting, and, to make it more green. ADA accessibility, accessible ramps and stuff like that.
But I can tell you specifically, what the guidelines say is that the eligible project has to be owned and maintained by an applicant or by a nonprofit. So as long as these are sidewalks that the borough owns and maintains, that's fine. The eligible uses of funds, and I'm going to say just for a third time, it's very broad. It's what eligible uses of funds are defined as acquisition, construction, demolition, infrastructure, purchases of vehicles, machinery, or equipment, planning, consulting, design of costs related to planning projects. I don't think we want to do a planning project here. Engineering, design, up to 10% of the total grant award. Administrative costs not to exceed 2%, contingency costs not to exceed 5%. So that's a very broad, that's as broad as I've seen for eligible uses of funds in a grant.
So when you would look at something like that, you would say, okay, we want to do this project. And you can say, well, we have $1 million that we can apply for. How much can you get for that $1 million for that project? How much can you go from Miller Avenue? Where's that going to take us to? And we could get some sort of a ballpark idea where it's going to take us to and where it's going to stop and where it would end.
I would recommend focusing on your busiest business district. Start there and
Start in the center and move out.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I can give you a rough idea. Okay, if we just do sidewalk, sidewalks cost this much, paving. I mean, if you redo new sidewalks and curbs, you're gonna have to do some paving because you have to cut into the street. So, paving costs this much, so we should know pretty quick.
So do you think we would have to change, what are they called? Curbs. Would the curbing have to be changed?
Like, would the curbs have to be replaced?
Right.
The current ones? Not necessarily. I mean, if they were in good condition.
I mean, those curbs, how long ago was that project done? I think they put new curbing in then, didn't they?
Yeah, it was only 30 years ago.
So,
I mean, is there good curb reveal there and they're pretty
Anywhere
good
there's
condition?
handicap ramps, it's pretty much the salt is taken apart.
So maybe the curb ramps need to get redone and the sidewalks. I know those pavers gotta go.
that's what I'm looking, that's what I'm looking to accomplish.
Get rid of the pavers.
That's what I'm really looking to accomplish, because it's a problem.
Oh my, yes. And what
So-
about the clock on Main Street, by green?
The clock needs to work.
The cameras,
So,
or
but
some planters,
Yeah.
that would all beautify,
Sure.
and make it look better.
So are we in agreement, we'd like to start some sort of application for that?
And we don't have to provide, it would be nice if one all contribute something, but.
Well, we can
it's not
contribute
mandatory.
paving through the paving areas that need to be paved.
Sure.
We don't have to earmark all the stuff in the grant, but we can add to what they're gonna do, so.
Jamie can give you a better idea than me. When I've been before these, grant boards and stuff before, they typically want to know what you're bringing to the table. They want to see some municipal skin in the game.
Right.
But it could be labor, it could be materials, it could be,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily have to be money.
Yes, it absolutely can be in kind. In most grants, I would have to check this one specifically. I have not asked that question in particular, and I don't see anything right off that says whether in kind would work, but typically we can count that as a match on these programs. There is no requirement for this, but as Colin said, it typically does help to show that there's some investment from the municipality as well. So, what I'm hearing from all of you is that we should pursue this, so we'll talk.
I would love to see that get done. If we can
Okay.
accomplish that, that's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we could get into the application a little bit on Friday.
Yep, sounds great.
And see what we need to get done and.
Yep, that sounds
Great, that's awesome.
That sounds good, and then I expect, that, like, as I said, the library will be in touch about an application and whether the borough would be willing to help them as an applicant for a project to renovate the building there. They're still working on their renovations.
That's the state LSA fund.
Yes,
Great.
statewide, yep. And then before I wrap up, because I've taken a lot of your time this evening and I appreciate the conversation, but just so you're aware of the other grants that we are watching. Small water and sewer has not opened for some time, but we will keep an eye on that, and if that was to open again, I know there are needs for sewers in the borough. Keystone Communities opens in the summertime typically, so we're keeping an eye on that. Greenways, Trails, and Recreation is open now, so if there are additional parks needs, Councilman, to your points earlier, be happy to talk about those and whether that would fit in that application. Typically, parks projects would fit in a Greenways, Trailways, and Recreation program, but we can check on that for sure.
Great.
The multimodal grant will open again this summer. If we still have an open application, that is a little bit more difficult if we haven't drawn down the funds that are currently awarded, but we can certainly talk about that. There is a second multimodal transportation fund through the Department of Transportation. The award that we received is through Community and Economic Development, but there is a separate fund through Transportation. So we can talk about that. It typically opens in the fall, so we have some time to put that out there. But I do want to put things in your mind so you know what opportunities exist. We don't know when the GEDTF, the Gaming Economic Development Tourism Fund, will open again, but it typically opens throughout the year. And there's oftentimes opportunities through Act 152 funds through the county for blight remediation and things of that nature. So again, we don't know when that grant will open, if at all this year, but it's out there. I also had some conversations with one of the officers on the Chief's force regarding needs for the police department, including vehicles. There are a couple of federal programs that I think may be of interest. One is through the USDA, interestingly. They will fund police equipment. And there's another through the Department of Justice that is not current. The USDA program is open now and we can apply. If you all give me that direction, we can look into that application and what the requirements are there and work with the chief on that. The COPS hiring grant through the Department of Justice will fund a police officer, portion of a police officer salary for a couple of years, and it decreases over time, but it helps to get additional officers in place if there's a need for that. And then there's also the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency has the Justice Assistance Grants open right now as well. So if there are needs in the police department, I'd be happy to talk about those as well.
I think we definitely have some needs in our police department
Yeah.
for vehicle, and if we can get put another officer or two on,
Okay.
with them paying some of the salary, I think that would be great.
Okay.
I'd like to see, Mr. President, I'd like to see us look into them.
Can look into it, absolutely.
Super. Okay. Mr. Mayor, perhaps you and the chief and I can talk at some point.
Sure.
Before too long, and we can talk
Set up
about
a
that.
date.
Yeah. Okay. Super. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about tonight, which is not to say a little, but.
Jamie, is there anything out there for maintaining and upgrading our veterans monuments?
I have that on my list of priorities. I'm keeping an eye out for that. I have not found a program as yet. However, I will certainly keep an eye
Wonderful.
out for that
Great.
and have that on my list for
Good,
sure.
good.
In addition to parks and streets and the police things that I mentioned, I have that as well. So,
Thank you.
absolutely. I'm hopeful that we'll find something.
And I have one other question for you. The Greenways
Yes.
grants, I believe they're the trails.
Yep, greenways, trails, and recreation.
Was that where they had trees that could be planted? There was a tree grant where they gave so many different trees out. I remember reading that last year.
That is not specific to that program. I believe Tree Pittsburgh has been working on that. I may be able to find out more about that. I don't have trees at the fore of my mind, but I will put that on the list and see what I can find out about a tree program. And let you know, Mr. Mayor.
I remember there was a tree planting program.
Last year.
Yeah, it was through Allegheny County, I think.
Yeah, I think it's, yes, there's been an active program, and I can say that because it's been active right over the hill from me in Forest Hills, planting some trees. So let me see what connections I can find there, Mr. President, and I'll see what I can
Thank
for
you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. And if any of you all ever need me, Becky has my contact information, hopefully all of you do as well, so feel free. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We have public comments. We try to include the public in commenting on anything that they'd like to see or make a quick comment on. This would be on any of the items that are on the council items on the agenda, or if they have something that they would like to mention. Mr. Stevens?
Mr. Otto mentioned something about the monuments, and I don't know if you knew this, but there's an entrepreneur down in Homestead who owns the Forge. His name's Michael.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
And I'm sure, I mean, if you could try to work with some of the businesses, especially him, his business is a huge business. I mean, he's all around the world. I'm sure, you know, if you would, you know, present him with something, he'd be, or even have, I mean, he was a 40-year veteran in the Marines.
Yes.
You know, he would know a program or something. That would be somebody you would probably want to talk to.
Okay.
You know, because he was a commander and, you know. So.
Well, I actually, it's not that you're a member down there, but being a veteran, I do go down there periodically. I volunteer some time, my wife volunteers some time and stuff. As far as getting finances for monuments and stuff from them, they're looking for finances from people to contribute to homeless veterans.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the program. Yeah, but I was just
I encourage anybody who's a veteran to actually go down there and talk with them. So, and I'll throw a plug in for them. Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays, 10 to 2. Go down there. It's strictly for veterans. So.
And another plug would be that he also offers. There's a female that comes down there, and people who have had injuries through war and stuff like that. She goes down there. I do believe she goes down there once a week, does she not, Mr. Rondo? The female that comes from the VA to sign people up.
She lives right across the street from us.
Okay. We should throw a plug.
Yeah, her name is Michelle Fisher. She actually is, I guess she would be the frontline person for somebody who is a veteran, never applied for VA benefits or actually signed up for the VA. She's down there. If anybody's interested, I do have her phone number. She would be more than willing to speak with you. She will help you in any way, shape, or form. And she has been dealing with Sue Watson from the Veterans Helping Veterans down there. She does go down one day a week to work with veterans. So, and I've brought this up before the meeting, and for the Veterans Day ceremony that is held at Still Valley High School, Michelle Fisher does have she sets up a table and stuff like that because veterans do show up for that ceremony, you know. And she's local, you know. So, but I do encourage veterans out there to go down there and register in and.
They're starting to funnel in a little bit more and more. So.
Well, no, it's a great organization, and they do offer things that are really hard to navigate through the VA. That's probably one of the most difficult government entities that you're ever going to deal with. So, yeah, absolutely. And if anybody's interested, if you can't get a hold of these people, call me. So.
Okay, any other comments? All right, so I'd like to move on to council items for agenda. These are just statements that we want to bring out and talk amongst ourselves. I'd first like to talk about council meeting dates and changes. I know it's been brought up by councilmen that they'd like to change the dates from Wednesday. I'm not sure what days would be acceptable for anyone. So I'm just opening the conversation up for council to talk about this briefly. And any thoughts?
I wouldn't mind suggesting Thursday for both the workshops, second Thursday of the month for the workshop, second Thursday of the month for council meeting.
Wait, you said second and second. You not mean having them both the same
Oh,
night?
sorry.
No, okay, I just want to make sure, clarify.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Me, I'm retired.
I can't make Thursdays. Not at all.
Can't make Thursdays at all.
Not at all. I got other meetings Thursday.
I do occasionally have meetings on Thursdays with the Allegheny County Boroughs Association and the Allegheny County League of Municipalities. This month I have one on I think it's on the Thursday the 24th, and I have something the first Thursday of the month.
Okay, how about Tuesdays? Would Tuesdays
What's wrong
accommodate
with
anyone?
where it's at now?
Tuesday's
Some
fine.
of the people have things they need to do too.
Well, I mean, your choice to run for council, you knew when the meetings are.
Meetings can be changed.
Oh, it's been like this for how many years? Now you want to change it?
It's
For
prerogative.
what? For,
It's the prerogative of council to change
well,
it.
yeah, it is the prerogative, but I'm against it.
All right. Would Tuesday suffice everyone else? Anyone else? Do you have problems on Tuesdays?
Tuesday nights, the planning commission meets.
Okay.
So we used to have the planning commission, it used to be on the Wednesdays, which would be the workshop night. So those of us who were on council would miss part of, and planning commission would miss part of the planning commission. So I don't care what day we do it on. I don't have a preference.
Okay. Would Tuesday, do you have meetings on Tuesday, Mr. Bodine?
No, no meetings, but, you know, stuff does come up.
Sure.
Tuesday work for me.
Tuesday works for me, I can do it.
You can switch the planning commission.
Well, I'm not the president of, or the chairman of the planning commission, that would be up to
But
the,
it could happen.
that's up to
You
the
could switch
planning
back to
commission
Wednesdays.
in itself, you know.
So, we wouldn't change it for this month, we'd change it for next month. So we'd have to advertise it in the paper. So let's
Can
wait.
you give me a reason why you want to change it?
It's been brought on council floor, other councilmen have other things that they want to attend, that they would like to change the meeting. That's all.
Well, they knew when the meetings are before they ran for council. And I think it should stay the way it is.
Okay. So,
I have input from the audience. What's anybody say?
does it matter with anyone in the audience?
A day is a day. Yeah.
So,
I mean, what's ever convenient for,
we,
the most logical thing is that if there's meetings that overlap, you would pick a day that they're,
so
the audience can be here, or people can show up, and it would be convenient for the members that participate.
The people were used to Wednesdays. Now you got to change it.
Other communities meet on different nights. I mean, it's not set in gold that we're gonna be this day. I mean, I know West Mifflin meets on a different night, West Homestead meets on a different night. I don't know, which nights they meet, but I know that they meet on Tuesdays or Thursdays or, Wednesdays. But before we change anything, it has to be advertised. And also, we need to fill out which is next on the list, our committees and boards, because we need to have committee meetings, we need to have finance meetings, and we need to start having recreational meetings again. We need to start bringing our town together and having these discussions, because certainly, we haven't had a finance meeting in 2 years. So these will have to be advertised as well. So I don't want to just make one advertisement. I like to make a total advertisement for whichever meetings we're going to have. So we're going to have planning commission meetings, we're going to have finance meetings, we're going to have recreational committee meetings, we can have public safety meetings. Public safety meetings can be, done on an as-needed basis. But it certainly needs to be addressed, and it needs to be taken into consideration and done. So that's why we need to work on our boards, our committees. I mean, I had a pretty much a matrix set up, and then Mr. Fallon resigned. So that sort of threw things in a helter-skelter. And honestly, the last 2 weeks of sub-zero weather has been trying. So I would like you guys to, if we want to sit and take a couple of minutes and do this, we can do that. Or we can do it after the meeting tomorrow, the next day. I can roughly go over some of this stuff if you want to go over it, you can do that. And that's going to come into effect when we're going to have these other meetings. Because if you're going to change our council meetings to a Tuesday or a Thursday, then we're going to have, you know, if you look here, Economic Development and Blight meets second Tuesday of each month. You know, we had Veterans of Foreign Government Affairs, they met as needed. The Enterprise Zone, I know they meet on Mondays. When does the COG meet, Rich?
Thursdays.
They meet Thursdays. Right. And I remember you said you didn't want to be on the COG
I said
anymore.
I'd be on as your alternative.
You'd be an alternate there on the COG?
I told you that.
Okay. So let's move on to the rest of the meeting, and then we can certainly maybe work on this a little bit and get this done.
Does anybody have a problem if we postpone doing this tonight?
Postpone doing what?
You know, picking who's on what committees and stuff like that. We could talk about this after or tomorrow.
Yeah, this doesn't have to be
done.
This is not a public thing.
Right.
This can be done amongst ourselves.
Right.
As far as just fill it out, put what committee you want to be in there. I don't have a problem. I don't want to put someone on a committee they don't want to be on.
I think the president could just ask for request what committees you want to be on, and
Right.
hopefully it fits.
Fill it in and
And just start filling it in from
Right.
there. I mean,
So
that can be done, I think, just with a private call to you.
Right.
They can tell you what committees what preferences are.
Right. So but we need to get it done.
Right.
And that's all I'm saying. So let's move on. All right. And then let's talk about and think about, you know, I understand personnel feelings on not wanting to move, and I understand feelings on wanting to move. So, all right, so let's move on. Been brought up, borough vehicles being brought home by department heads. So, anyone like to elaborate on this? Certainly. Dave, do you bring your vehicle home to your house?
Yes, sir.
You do. In Public Works, you bring a vehicle home as well, so that's 2 vehicles. And the chief,
Like the police chief.
the police chief brought his vehicle home as well, that's 3 vehicles. So, and the fire chief brings a car home too as well. Is that a borough vehicle?
It is a borough.
So that's 4 vehicles. And so does the police chief, and so does Dave Cannon, and so does them all. But that's not what's brought up. What's been brought up is, do we want to have borough vehicles being brought home by department heads? That's the question.
I'll speak up. I will say, I personally think that in every job I've ever known, you take your car to work and then you use your car on the hours that you're at work. And when you're done with your job, you return the car to wherever it's supposed to be, get in your car and you go home. I truly feel that insurance, I would question if something would happen to these vehicles when they're not in the lot. Are we responsible? Would we have to pay for it if it was hit by another car? You know, drunk driver or anything else in front of your house or wherever? I'm only asking.
What happens if there's a fire in the middle of the night and he ain't got his vehicle, which he keeps all his equipment in? And he has to come here to get a vehicle and then go?
What are the
Well,
firemen
don't all
doing?
the firemen do that?
I ain't talking about the fireman, I'm talking about the fire chief.
I think it was brought, I mean, when I first started, I used to use my own vehicle for, I used to get allowance. I'd get reimbursed for my mileage. what happened was a couple times I was called off at night between the cops, or public works, or even the firemen, because, you know, a car went through a house or something like that. So instead of me going, having to come to the thing, get my vehicle, go, Mayor Bonner said, hey, just take your car home, because if you're called out at night, just go to the thing. I personally don't use my borough vehicle. Very seldom do I use my borough vehicle for personal use. The only time I use it for personal use is if my van is in the garage. I usually ask the manager, hey, everyone knows my van. It's in the garage, I might need my thing, no problem, I mean, blah, blah, blah. But on the other side of that, when my borough vehicle was getting in the garage, I used my van. So it was a trade-off. I mean, right now, I did some work to see how much it would cost, or save the borough. The borough's paying like an additional $55, because my house is 0.09 miles away. I take it home every night, that's 234 miles, divide up by an average of 15 miles to the gallon, you're paying $54 in gas, additional gas.
A year.
A year. All right?
And
But I've been called out at 3 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock at night, and I'm sure he has, I'm sure Ed does, so, I mean, that was the,
Just a little bit.
yeah,
Just a little bit.
not often.
yeah. I mean, so that's why. I know, I was told by Mayor Bodner to start taking my vehicle.
Chief Pletch, how many nights do you get called out?
We run almost 500 calls a year. My mobile data terminal's in there, my gear, all my radio equipment, and there's nothing more important in the fire department than to have the command officer go to the scene first. The fire chief in Homestead will attest to this. The fire chief in West Homestead, every West Mifflin County, the fire chief leaves his house and goes to the scene. The firefighters go to the station. The fire chief is there initially to direct the operations. There's nothing more important than those first couple minutes of a fire. Now, if you're asking me to come to a station to pick up the vehicle, which station would this council like me to park it at? I am an impartial member of the Bureau of Fire. Although I am a member of number 4, I do not hold loyalty to number 4, I hold loyalty to the Bureau. So which station would you like me to park it at? So it's at my house. Now, fire chief, for years, regardless of having a vehicle or not, took his personal vehicle to the scenes. I will tell you now, I'm not putting the MDT, the radio equipment, I'm not spending a couple $1,000s to put that in my own personal vehicle. It's imperative to the way we function. Tim Eads will tell you right there, he has a vehicle, John Dindek has a vehicle, everybody does. Those chiefs go to the scene. Now, there are times when I go to a station, depending upon the situation, but I'm not compensated in any way by this borough for anything that I do. Anything. So if you're going to take my vehicle, that's fine. Go ahead. I take the vehicle. But I will not be putting any money into my personal vehicle. I won't be putting red lights on it, a siren, none of that stuff. It's not gonna happen.
There's also life too would be in there, because he gets there first. He's usually the first one there. And maybe there's somebody trapped in a building, or there's somebody there that needs help right away. He's there to help them before anybody else gets there.
And when I'm on vacation or when I'm out of town, the deputy chiefs get the car for that specific reason. So Lenny would get the car, or Brian would get the car as well.
I'll just speak on behalf of the mayor and the departments the mayor will be concerned with mainly, is that the public safety needs to take a vehicle home for public safety reasons. It's, Ed and the chief, I think response time that they would get there is important, that they get there quick and don't have to come up and get a car.
I believe the chief should take it home too.
I learned a wealth of information, Ed. I thank you for saying
Well, if I'm on
everything
public
you said,
safety,
because I wasn't aware
he takes
of
his
that.
vehicle home.
I thank you.
All you gotta do is call me. Tell
No,
you.
I won't call you. I will ask, and I will tell you what, I'm willing to learn. And I thank you for telling me that.
Okay,
I really
so,
do.
so we're going to leave it as it is for right now.
Mhm.
And in moving forward into our meetings, we're going to start having council people, once these committees are set, I want the council people who chair the committees, I want them to give a report. And I also want the fire chief and engineers to give a report. I want you guys to give a report stating what you guys have done in the last month. And I know, Ed, you give a very good detailed report all the time, but we're looking for what we've been doing, and the administrative office is going to be doing that as well. We're going to start giving out to the public more information on what goes on so that people understand what you all are doing all the time. And I have a real good working idea what goes on. I work and drive around the town all the time, and I see the fire trucks, I see the firemen. I know that they're out there, the police are out there, and we just need to present ourselves and let the public know that, okay? All right, so that's one of the things that are going to be changing in the meetings, okay? And I'm just going to move into some of the things I have put on here, just a statement. Now, there's been statements made that the Munhall Police and Munhall Borough does not really care about Munhall and what's going on in the town. And that could not be farther from the truth. And we do see what happens in social media and what's heard. We may not respond to it, but we do hear it. And I gotta say, I'm just making a statement. Everyone up here is devoted to the town. We're all here, we're not here for our own personal interests. We're here for the betterment of Munhall. Everyone here, everyone sitting at this table is. And for people to blast us in social media, they have every right, they can say anything they like. But they should be a little bit more considerate of what they're saying. Secondly, I think we do need to start working with speed control and speed humps in certain areas of the town. And I think we need to work in certain areas of the town when there's paving projects and stuff going on. If we can get a paving company while they're paving the street to add a speed hump while they're in that area, like Ravine Street could have been done. We could have added a couple there very, very cost effectively. I think we need to do that. And not just Ravine Street. There, you know, Munhall Gardens up there, I've gotten complaints as mayor. I got many complaints on speeding up there. I've talked to council before about making one-way roads up in Munhall Gardens. So we need to have the public needs to start coming back into our meetings and start talking to us and start changing the way we're doing and representing our people, okay? There's going to be a lot of changes in the police department. We're going to be repositioning our police department. We have an acting chief who's here tonight. Thank you for coming, Scott. Chief Snyder, I should say. And Chief Snyder's going to be retiring soon too. So we wish you the best in your retirement, if indeed you do take it. And we will be appointing a new chief. And then when that time comes, we are going to be switching. There's going to be a lot of things that we've already been discussed with the new chief, the new mayor, myself have been talking, and there is going to be some changes done with the police department, guaranteed. We're waiting until things happen. Things have happened, so much has happened so far this year. It's very much, we're chasing the tail in a circle. But we are going to come out good. We're going to come out to the good. Honestly, people just need to be a little patient. There's going to be a lot of good things. We have a great town we live in. We have to remember that. And it's everywhere. It's all inclusive in the whole town. So, that being said, moving on from the police chief, we have a new building. We need to know what's going on over there. We need to know when this thing is going to happen. It's now February, and we're not in there. We were supposed to be in there in January, September, what we were told. I'm not real thrilled with the building, to be honest with you. This council chambers is so much more, I don't know how you want to say it here. There's not pillars and posts and people aren't hiding behind there. I mean, it's very open, you see people, but that's what it is. I mean, it is what it is. That's what we have. So
It's comfy.
yeah, it's comfy. So I'm looking for some answers. What's going on, and when are we going to actually be done over there?
So, yeah.
I'll start first. I talked to Frank and Joe, and the last thing on the ADA for the inside should be finished by Wednesday of next week. We're trying to get the ADA inspector to come out next Friday, the 18th, to do his walkthrough for the inside. After that, if he says everything has passed, then I'll only shoot temporary. There's also, before I shoot a temporary, I want glazing to be done on the bathroom windows. We definitely need that before I shoot a temporary. I don't know if we're gonna do that in-house or if we're gonna have a company come in and do it.
So that was not, the glazing that Boomer's talking about, well, just add on to that. The architect did his final walkthrough back in December. He generated a punch list. There's still outstanding items on the punch list. There's gonna be the result of the walkthrough that we're gonna do with this council afterwards, you know, when I came here.
Right.
The plan is after that, to go to them with the final stuff, finish it. We'd like to see it all finished by the end of the month. We'll do our final walkthrough, we'll get all the final turnover documentation, and we'll close out the project.
Okay.
Now, the project will be done, but the project didn't include some things that need to be done before the borough, you know, plans to occupy the building. One of them is glazing the windows. For whatever reason, it was not in the contract, it was not done. It's a minor cost. It's, you know, the order of magnitude that I remember is about $900. It's just about putting film over some of the bathroom walls for privacy. So the other one that the police chief, Boomer, and I discussed with Telephonics, the communication company, that needs to happen before we could actually move in there, is to finalize the networking. That, we knew that wasn't going to be included in the contract, so provide you an update on that. A lot of the cost in Scott or Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misspeaking here, but a lot of the cost is related to the needs of, you know, the most extensive IT needs in that building are for the police department.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So, costs that are left, about $12,000 approximately, we were told, for networking equipment. That's routers and servers and stuff that goes in IT closets, and to build that out. The police need more data ports. The architect did not include enough data ports to meet the police needs in the contract, so there needs to be more data ports in there, so Ethernet cables, data ports, etc. And we need 911 call boxes. All that totaled is, just giving you an order of magnitude cost here, is probably about $30,000, but Scott, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what we discussed when we had our little meeting is that since it wasn't, this cost wasn't in the borough budget, that any costs related to the police department, which, you know, say is about $25,000 of that cost, could be paid out of the police forfeiture funds.
And we would certainly check into that and make sure we. I'm pretty sure.
We've had that conversation as
Yeah.
well. So that's good.
So that's good. So those are the window glazing. Dave is adamant that he wants to see that done. We could easily get a quote from, I have the name of the company that would do it. We'll get a quote, get that done. The networking, that's going to be done through Telephonics. Dave worked with the police extensively for what, like the last 10, 15 years.
And he said his turnaround would be 2 weeks, around 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks to get the networking done, and to kind of end our relationship with Franjo, we're really targeting the end of the month. You know, final walkthrough.
Let's get it done. Let's get it done, and we need to have all the plumbing fixtures working in there.
Yep, agreed.
I got a question, Owen. Seeing that now we have like rooftop units, we have, you know, are we gonna need a stationary engineer over there, being that we have?
Well, that was another conversation that I had, and my opinion is yes, you do. You need, I think that would kind of fall under the umbrella of Public Works, but there needs to be someone assigned to that building that really understands it and knows when those rooftop units need to be serviced,
Right.
when the generator needs to be serviced. Check to make sure, you know, all the fixtures are working, the lighting's working. Someone really needs to understand that building. That's obviously something that, you know, Dave.
So do you think it would be a full-time person? Do you think it would be could it be a public works employee?
I would think
Isolated to that, hey, you take care of this is your priority, and then you're also working in public works.
That's what I would foresee.
Okay.
And, you know, I would foresee that person maybe didn't need to be full-time at the building.
Right.
But it would be part of their daily duties to check, or weekly responsibilities to check on it. And, you know, as part of the turnover for this project, we're gonna have O&M manuals, operations and maintenance manuals for all this equipment that's in there. You know, the rooftop units, the generator.
Right.
The ejector pump, you know, being kind of the big ticket items.
So,
But really understanding that, developing a punch list of when those things need to be serviced and.
So one thing I would like you to leave us is, for this project over there, is all the contractors' names and phone numbers and contact information, because if there's problems with anything,
Yeah.
we need to have a list of someone in the office to call.
Yep.
And say, hey, who is the electrician? We need to talk to him. Who set all the furnace units and whatnot, and blah, blah, blah.
And just, so don't quote me on this, and I will confirm, but Franjo does owe us a maintenance bond, you know, as part of, you know, the final closeout of this project, and that's gonna cover any big ticket things go wrong within the first, I believe it's 2-year full.
There should be some warranty.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and there's warranties that are, you know, associated with the generator and other
Right.
equipment that was bought as part of the
Right.
project.
And I got one more question.
Yeah.
Did we do anything with grounds and gardens? I mean, is there anything in the works for nothing?
What you see now is, I mean, so there's obviously a big pile of dirt out in front of the ejector pump. There's gonna be a lid that goes on that. And then the multimodal project that we applied for is gonna cover paving. We could do some landscaping as part of that, but no, in terms of what Franjo owes us as part of, you know, the contract, there was no landscaping, there was no, you know, we tried to keep the costs.
Well, I was more or less thinking about when you go up around the old Homestead Hospital loop,
Yeah.
and you see shrub, like shrub, you know?
It's something to think about, and I mean, it definitely can be incorporated into that multimodal project, if that would be the prerogative of the council, or it could be earmarked for future projects. But, yeah, it's, or maybe it's something Public Works can handle. I know Bob will like me for saying that.
Tell you what, it
but-
sounds like we're putting a lot on Public Works.
Yeah, I agree.
We're putting a lot on Public Works.
Yeah.
What about the signage for the building? When would that go on? You know, the Munhall Borough building and the address, that kind of stuff.
I'll have to check the contract to see what was included, but to my knowledge, any signage that was provided, you know, was in the contract is up. So I don't think that they're necessarily providing a big Munhall Borough sign, but I'll double check.
Is there an address on the building at all?
Randy,
Not right.
you can hide
Not
that
right to see anything.
generator
We
with a
need to
big
have an
electrical
address on
sign
the
that
building.
flashes stuff.
Thank you, don't call them.
Just because
She wants
the
to hide the
fire
generator.
company may need
I
to
said,
get
"You want those big
that
flashing signs
address.
with Munhall Borough."
I'm
Well,
just saying,
well, that's
you gotta have an
I
address.
thought that was, are we gonna go with one right bar away?
Yeah, I don't know
Also
where that
known as
stopped.
1860?
I don't know where that
In the
stopped
street.
with the county, because he submitted paperwork with the county to change that to one room bottom way.
Currently, the fire alarm system there is set up as 1860 West Street.
Yes.
So just letting you know that
Yes.
It's never been
listed
changed.
as a West Street address.
Okay.
So if it
You do the
changes, if for some
inspections,
reason
right?
we find out with the county level, can we?
No.
No,
You mean on the systems there?
yeah, it's just,
No. No, they're brand new, they'll be in. Yeah,
I'll make sure it's in right.
Oh, you
I already did.
checked.
Hey Ed, if we
Ed
find
beat 'em
out
up
at the
pretty
county
good.
level, we're like a couple of pieces of side paper away from Raymond Bogger Way, do we need to let you know if
No, I'll
that
take
changes?
care of it, but I do need, what I do need to know is that, sorry, Mayor.
No, go ahead.
Joe Varhola was on the contact list for when the fire alarm goes off, the burglar alarm, whatever it is, the fire alarm goes off. And then it was you and then my name on there. So I need to email them a replacement number. If they hold off on that for a little while, they'll just keep calling until you get to me anyways.
Yeah.
So, and if it is burning, I'll know about it because the fire department will be dispatched. However, the new manager, I assume we're gonna hire a new manager.
Absolutely.
We'll, and Vicey, I'm gonna put you on there as well for
I don't
contract.
have keys.
So,
I don't think anybody has to.
I mean, that's one other thing to bring up, and I don't know if it's Public Works, Bob, or if it's, you know, how that's gonna work, but again, you know, when the turnover, there's a box of keys.
Well, Joe went through the building with keys and worked on that. You and
But
Dave, him and Dave, I remember that.
It's really, I mean, it could be a weeks-long project,
Yes.
just labeling all these keys.
Where are we gonna store the keys?
Well, that's the question. Like Colin said, do we store them with the police? Do we store the police side with the police and the administrations? I mean, that's
where are the keys for this building stored?
everywhere.
When
Everywhere.
when I became a deputy chief and became a member here as a servant, I went downstairs to the office and the borough secretary handed me a key for the office, which is downstairs.
Yeah.
No, it was up here, then downstairs, not back up here.
Yeah.
So, but that's where I got the keys.
Yeah.
Down
We've
in the
had
office. So I'm
everything.
just
We
saying,
had,
you know.
we had even, Jamie Caterina's office was the last one we turned over because we didn't really have any business having a key to that. So we turned that over to Jamie, and I don't know what he did over on the police side with it, but yeah, that's how it's always been. But we need to step into 2022 with that whole labeling key hanging with the little changly thing hanging from it, come on.
Well, we're gonna have.
There's
We gotta do that.
There's a big box.
metal box.
Yeah, it's great.
Just gotta figure out where you mount it, and then you gotta know what the keys are. They need to be, someone
need to be-
Like when they put the
Yeah.
keys in those boxes, they didn't say this key's for this.
Well, I
and
thought
Joe
Joe-
had
it
that.
says like-
They're in boxes right now, but we just have, okay, I call them box, okay,
But
mayor's office.
the box
okay,
has
I
like
see
a
what you
code on it.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It says like A22.
So we
And
have
then-
we have a big,
There's a schedule somewhere
Yeah.
that I have that'll, I mean, but it's very, it's
Complicated.
very complicated.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at, you know.
We gotta make a decision, chief, where we're gonna put the keys is right.
yes.
So we need to come to some agreement and talk about it. I think the police department has to have a set of keys.
I think it's actually,
Maybe they should have a key fob though.
Fire
Yeah, but
department.
Well,
Don't
there's
you have-
gonna be key fobs.
I mean, I don't think we, you know, need to.
What I understand, it'll be available to the borough and
Yeah, we bought the machine and the tag
and
thing for
there's
them, did
supposed
we
to
not?
be like a bracelet that you can
Walk right
use.
up to the.
And supposedly you could use your phone too.
That would be nice.
Also, we have to put in a Knox box with a master key per our ordinance for Knox.
Yeah.
Right.
We meet the criteria, but I'm pretty sure the fire chief will let it go for a little while. I know that.
You connected?
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm gonna move on. There is a problem with the second.
Mayor, one more thing with, how will we move into the building? That's a good question. Are we gonna, Public Works, or are we gonna have an outside moving company?
I don't think Public Works can move us into there.
Because I know the police have a couple of things that are extremely heavy.
I think the office we can move the office in, some stuff, most of the stuff, some stuff. I think the police are gonna have to move a lot of their stuff in over there as well, because they don't want people handling it. But,
You can't have people handling evidence.
right, so I think that it's gonna be a collaboration of both. But I mean, to move, we're not gonna, maybe we rent trucks, or we rent a company to come in and work for a day or two, but we're gonna have to do something about, as far as, we're not just moving them all with Public Works vehicles.
Yeah, that's.
We're gonna have to get someone in charge, and really, what hurts us is we don't have a borough manager who is in charge of this, who can get this done. So we're gonna have to have
Input from.
we're gonna have to make decisions and do it and do it ourselves.
Well, one nice thing, if you do hire movers, there's insured of any damage, but I don't know if our Public Works, if there's a damage, that's insured.
Kid Scott, if we hire a moving company, if you assign one of your officers to go with them as they're taking stuff and loading stuff, does that suffice for you?
Probably for records, but not evidence.
And not
It'll
your
have to be,
And not
Not your
weapons and ammo
Yeah.
and guns and.
Right, you
Yeah.
gotta move that.
There's a lot of stuff that's not
Yeah.
into that.
Okay.
but the
So-
boxes and boxes and boxes of records that we have, a guy could probably go with them and watch and make sure. They're just gonna be dropping them off in the rooms that
Right.
they go in.
Right.
But yeah,
So-
evidence and that other stuff, no.
So we should be starting to look into calling moving companies and seeing what our costs are gonna be for a couple of days for that. You know, like a daily cost, I would think, I don't know.
So moving company and just like a U-Haul, so because if they have to move their own stuff, you wanna look into trucks for that as well?
We'll have to, for the police department, yeah.
The other thing over there that I saw, hopefully it's on the punch list, but the evidence room, they installed the wrong type of a door for evidence. It works two ways. You can stick, it doesn't lock, you can stick your whole arm in there. So we can't have that unsecured before we put evidence in there.
Well, then that has to be corrected.
Good thing you said that.
That's why we're glad you're here.
Is the furniture itself over there already? And being installed?
Office furniture.
Not,
Yeah, office furniture.
office furniture is all in, that's good to hear.
Mr. President, can I make a suggestion? While you're doing this transfer over, Scott, with the old records that you have, what would it take for you to digitize those old boxes of records and then store them off-site?
No, we can't do it. We can't digitize them. We have to keep the original files. And major cases and certain types of arrests, we have to maintain 75 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could store them off-site. I've seen that done
There's
before.
no point in us storing them off-site. We would have to send somebody there constantly, and the reason you retain records is because of expungements. And we get expungements constantly. We're constantly digging through those files, looking for these cases. And I wouldn't want to be sending people back and forth all the time looking for these records. They need to be stored on-site where we have access of them. And digitizing them, I wouldn't do it.
That was just a
I
suggestion.
wouldn't do it.
Well, so this is something we're gonna have to further talk about. We're gonna have to make a decision on rental trucks, movers, what the police are gonna need. You know, there's no doubt about that. All right, let's move on. Second building, there's another problem back here. We acquired 2 buildings. The second building back there, which was the old, I guess, nurses, was that their quarters?
Yeah, school, it was a school, I think.
So that building, our insurance is going to be on a deadline ending 4/2/2002. 2022, I'm sorry. So I need to speak with our agent and talk with him about trying to find another carrier for that building. And also on that subject, I believe there's a problem with this fire hall here. Did I speak with someone about a
You
fire?
did, and we thought it was that, but it is the nurse's
that
building,
building.
but there also is another issue with this building. When we were supposed to move in there, Joe had them transfer all of the, the insurance over to that building. Right now, this building only covers liability insurance. That means if the building burns, they'll cover the building, but they won't cover any of the contents
Are
inside.
you kidding?
So there is no coverage for this. And they want to know, the insurance company wants to know, should they move that coverage back and write a new policy for this building until we get over there, or what we want to do? Fisher, Paul Fisher, I gave you his contact information.
Yeah, I have it
He
here.
wants to talk to you.
I'm gonna call him.
Okay.
So we'll get to the bottom of that, but we can't leave this building uninsured. If it burns down, how foolish would we look?
Rick, you might want to ask them about maybe a limited policy.
Yeah, they can do a short
Obviously,
policy.
you're not going to maintain the building at the same insurance rate, I would think.
Right.
But you may want to lower it a little bit because the risk would be a lot lower since there's nothing to do that with the fire department.
We'll probably be a little lower rate too.
Sure. Okay, so we do own the old nurses' residence over there, am I correct? So Scott, you brought up about the veterans helping veterans. I know that I spoke with Sue Watson down there, and what she was doing is, I guess through the veterans, they might be interested, like the VA might be interested in actually either A, purchasing and or renting a building, preferably that size, to house disabled veterans.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if I get the, I mean, and we'll talk about this in the future, it's not like it has to be done right now, but if I get the okay, I will speak with them. Because what they would do is rent it and probably refurbish it to suit their needs.
That's like set up for that kind of.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, it's got individual rooms and stuff like that. I mean, not only disabled, but I'm talking about maybe like homeless veterans too. You know, where the Veterans Administration would actually pay for that, so.
How big is that building? I've never seen it. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head. How many rooms?
It's a big building, it's a big building. It's a
About the
big
same
building.
size as Park School, the upper part.
Wow.
About
Yeah.
that size. Not much smaller.
It was
When they did,
trashed.
when they did the
It is
walkthrough
terrible.
for the
It was
insurance,
horrible.
when they did
It's
the,
wet in there too. So
yeah, when
it's-
they did the walkthrough for the insurance company said, you need to fix this, 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 and this. And we haven't fixed those things, and that's why
It's
they're
all
not
wood too,
policy on
ain't
it.
it?
No, it's similar to this construction.
It's like this here, like that hospital.
It's what's called type 2 construction. It's similar to that.
Yeah, but we're talking about government money, so.
Yeah, the
you know what I
government
mean?
can come in and do it, yeah, for sure.
You know,
All right, so let's move on, because we have still some more things to figure here, and we still are planning on a walkthrough at the other building, so let's move through this. A lot of this stuff was just put on here as reminders to all council. These are things we need to start doing. We can talk all we want, but we really need to start doing. William Knight Field, we need someone who has to help manage the field, or take part in it. We don't have, it's not fair to have one staff office person in there and no one to help. We can't, so we're stymied there for right now. Also, fees to be discussed for the fee schedule. We need to look at what we're charging for the field and move forward with that. And that goes for all the borough fees. Late fees, parking fees, permit fees, building permits, you know, solicitation, dumpster permit, parking permits, you know. The list goes all the way down. We need to sit down one day and start going through this stuff and start getting into 2022. Because we're missing a lot of things, like, and I don't want to sit here and argue with Dave about it, but when they have a grading permit or any building permit that's good for 5 years, is that state law?
I've showed you that, yeah, a building permit in the state of Pennsylvania is good for 5 years.
That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
5 years maximum?
I get a building permit in New York where my cottage is, it's good for 1 year, and if I go after that, I have to go get another permit.
I mean, I could look into if we could do an ordinance change that. I don't know.
Well, I want you to look into that, because I don't believe 5 years is any, I can get a permit and say, well, I'm gonna put a piece of drywall there this
Is it in the UCC that says that?
Yeah, 5 years.
That's statewide.
Yeah, statewide, but you may, sometimes the building says you could limit, you could be more restrictive.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you, I mean, someone could argue that. I mean,
So,
You could increase the fee.
well, no, well, you have to be careful with the fee. I can't make, and Jim, you'll probably know this too, we are not permitted to be a revenue producing,
we're not in the business to make money.
we're not, and like even like dumpster fees, we charge $25. You'd be surprised how many people complain about the $25. Oh, what, I'm trying to fix my house up, you're charging me $25 for a dumpster. You hear that side of the story too.
Well, that's not.
People complain about everything. All of us are complaining about our bills going up, and it doesn't matter. They go up.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, get into 2022.
So, these were all put in here to plant the seed in everyone's mind, okay? So I'm gonna ask anyone if they have any additional things they'd like to talk about, and then I'm gonna ask for public comments, and then I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
I do.
Chief, go ahead first.
Go ahead.
I have two things I wanted to say. Well, I want to go back to the vehicle, because it is important to some of us to function with the vehicle. And I was recently, well, not recently, but one time a council president did accuse me of using it, they saw it running around out in the road. I didn't say anything, I just let it go. If you see me in the vehicle, or you see the vehicle at a time, it's on official business, or I'm on duty, or I'm available for calls. And I may be in West Mifflin, I might be at the airport, 911 center, or something like that. And if I'm in Monroeville, there's a good chance that I'm either going to the fire station, or I'm going to the Pittsburgh Fire and Rescue, which is what I did. And when this particular council president at the time said that about me, I figured out the dates. I didn't have the car. The bar mechanic had the car for 2 weeks trying to figure out the problem.
He lived.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I don't abuse that car in any way whatsoever. I treat it like a benefit to the borough. Two, and sadly, I want to report a life member up at number 4, and former council president here, Dave Martin, passed away. And he'll be laid out on Saturday, and there'll be fireman service at 7. So that was Alan's brother, if anybody knew Dave.
Yep, I knew Dave very well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I got one little thing. Okay, I don't know if people were aware of what has transpired probably within the last month, maybe a little bit more than a month, but Becky Worth has been overwhelmed in that borough office. Basically, she's wearing multiple hats down there. And the nice thing of it is we've had Emma Carter, who volunteers down there and comes in and helps out, and we've also had
Yes.
Councilman Fry come in and help too, and we also have a member from the street department that's coming in and helping out too, and that is greatly appreciated, and
Thank you.
I think you should get a round of applause. Thank you. Becky, you're doing a wonderful job down there.
Oh, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
And you did place an ad in the paper, so God willing, it'll be in the Valley Near for the next 2
2
weeks,
weeks,
and
yes.
God willing, we'll get somebody who will be in.
I told you, I'll wear a sandwich out front. I'll wear a sign that says we need a council member and a borough manager.
We need a board.
Props and some money.
Yeah, sure. I know, girl. I do want to tell you too, under the fees, I put the police reports. That is a code book driven charge, so we cannot change that. So if you'll scratch that off your list, and also they don't do fingerprinting anymore pretty much, so you can scratch that off as well.
And Mr. President?
Yes,
I
Mayor.
just talked about it briefly before the meeting.
Sure.
I think we need to contact the football team to honor them
Yep,
in the next.
I agree.
We are honoring the high school girls high school girls soccer. They have a banquet Saturday, so they're gonna be honored there with a proclamation that I signed and President Brennan signed. So we need to get the football team, maybe I can,
Yeah, if you can just give me a
I'll get a
contact, we can
contact
reach out to the
somebody,
coach
I
of
don't
some
know.
sort.
What about
Either
girls
the-
soccer?
The boosters,
We did-
the
that's
girls
what we
soccer.
did Saturday.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Saturday to the
softball.
Yeah,
banquet.
soccer, yeah.
I
that's-
messed up since softball, yeah. I'm gonna go to the banquet Saturday and give them a proclamation.
Started yet, did it?
Yeah, not yet. Hopefully we can honor them. A little bit off the
Volleyball,
June.
swim team.
Anyone else?
Yeah, one more thing, very quickly. In the past 2 weeks or whatever, we've had some major snowfalls. And I'd like to thank the street department, because if you leave Munhall and go elsewhere, it's like you're going up in the Arctic. Our streets were
Yeah.
stellar. Thank you all.
And last but not least, I mentioned to Mr. Brennan about this because we have this on our finance idea. We have a person who moved out of her house or out of the apartment building, left lots and lots and lots of garbage. Our garbage men picked up even more than they should have, but there was a lot of garbage down there. And the woman, this goes back to 2019. I had to think what it was. It was December 18th, 2019. The woman was charged $250. Our bookminders, who takes care of our stuff, sends her a bill. She has never paid. Never. I was hoping that our solicitor would be here to see what he says could be done. The bill is for $250. And the question is, Do you want us to continue to, go after this person? Do you want it just to be dropped? I'm not making that decision, so I'm bringing it here.
Like I said, we'll address that at the council meeting.
Okay,
We'll talk with our solicitor about it,
okay.
and we'll go from there.
She has moved now, so her statements are not coming back, undeliverable. So that's just a thought.
Thank you.
She moved.
Because unbelievable.
All right, need a motion for adjournment unless anyone else has anything else. Motion? Second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Very good. Thank you all for attending. It's a long meeting.
Thank you.
but it
Thank you.
was good.